untold story of Bruce Springsteen's three children. This moment changed everything for Bruce Springsteen.
I'll be on that hill, 'cause I can't stop. I'll be on that hill.
For half a century, he's been the voice of the American dream, a man who turned factory town heartbreak into poetry and sweat-soaked stadiums into church. They called him the boss, but to millions of fans, Bruce Springsteen was more than a performer. He was a storyteller of truth, the everyman who carried the struggles of an entire generation in the rasp of his voice. But behind the roaring crowds, the guitars, and the anthems that defined an era, there was another rhythm, a quieter one. It pulsed inside a farmhouse in Colts Neck, New Jersey, where Bruce Springsteen learned something he never sang about on stage: how to be a husband, how to be a father, and how to face the ghosts that fame could never silence. You see, Bruce didn't grow up believing in fairy tales. He came from working-class grit, a kid from Freehold, New Jersey, raised by a mother who worked herself to the bone and a father whose silence spoke louder than words. Those roots ran deep, shaping every lyric he'd ever write. His songs, Thunder Road, Born to Run, The River, were never just about rebellion. They were prayers for connection, written by a man who feared he might never find it. As fame swallowed him whole, Bruce tried to outrun the same loneliness that haunted his father. He filled stadiums, chased perfection, and became the myth America needed him to be: a blue-collar hero who never stopped running. But when the lights went out, he realized that no encore could fill the silence of an empty room. Then came Patti Scialfa, a voice on stage that cut through his chaos like light through smoke. She wasn't intimidated by the boss. She loved the man behind the leather jacket. Together they built something Bruce had never truly known: home. In 1991, they married quietly, away from the frenzy of tabloids and headlines. By then, Bruce was in his early 40s, old enough to understand that the spotlight couldn't raise a family. He once said, "I knew how to be a rock star, but I didn't know how to be a dad." That humility would guide the next chapter of his life, and when his first child, Evan, was born, everything changed. Bruce Springsteen, the man who once sang about running from small towns, suddenly wanted nothing more than to stay in one. He built a home not of fame, but of faith and family, a place where horses roamed, guitars rested on kitchen chairs, and laughter replaced applause. But the story of Bruce's children, Evan, Jessica, and Sam, is not about privilege or celebrity. It's about what happens when the son of a broken man becomes a father determined to break the cycle. What follows is the untold story of Bruce Springsteen's three children, how each found their voice in a world that already knew their name, and how their quiet lives became the truest reflection of the boss's greatest legacy. The heart beneath the leather jacket. Before there was the boss, there was simply Bruce, a kid from a small New Jersey town where dreams were as fragile as the paychecks that kept them alive. His father, Douglas, sat in silence most nights, the weight of unspoken frustration filling the room. His mother, Adele, carried the family with an unbreakable optimism. That tension between despair and hope became the pulse of his music. Bruce grew up believing success would free him from the ghosts of his upbringing. By the time Born to Run and Born in the USA turned him into an American icon, he had achieved everything his childhood self thought would fix him. But inside, he still felt like the boy peering through factory windows at men who seemed to belong somewhere he didn't. Then, on stage with the E Street Band, came a moment that changed everything, when he locked eyes with a backup singer named Patti Scialfa. She was fiery, grounded, and unimpressed by celebrity. When Bruce fell for Patti, he wasn't just finding love, he was finding balance. In 1991, they married, and for the first time, Bruce began stepping away from the endless road. The man who once sang about running now longed to stay. He later said, "Fame is a spotlight, but family, that's the light that keeps you warm." It would take time, but fatherhood would eventually teach him that truth the hard way. But what the world didn't see was the story unfolding at home. In the early 90s, Bruce quietly retreated from Hollywood's chaos. He traded Beverly Hills for Colts Neck, New Jersey, a farm with horses, guitars, and, for the first time, silence. This wasn't an escape from fame, it was a pilgrimage toward normalcy. Bruce once admitted, "I had to figure out how not to be the boss at home. My kids didn't need that guy. They needed a dad." At home, Patty was the steady heartbeat. While Bruce toured sporadically, she kept the rhythm of family life. Breakfast before school, bedtime stories, laughter echoing down hallways filled with instruments. There were no paparazzi, no red carpets, no privileges that screamed rock legend. When their children were born, Bruce and Patty made a pact. The Springsteen kids would grow up anonymous. No magazine covers, no interviews, no public schools chosen for fame. They would know their father's music, yes, but not the mania that came with it. Those years became Bruce's greatest creative recharge. He learned that legacy wasn't just about records, it was about raising humans who could live with integrity. Evan James Springsteen, the firstborn and the dreamer. Born July 25th, 1990. Evan came into Bruce's life when the world still called him a rock god. Yet holding his newborn son, Bruce reportedly whispered, "I've played for millions, but this is the first time I've really felt seen." Evan was the quiet observer in a loud household. He'd sit backstage during rehearsals, strumming toy guitars, mimicking his dad's stage moves, not out of imitation, but admiration. But Bruce was determined not to let fame consume his child. When Evan was 6, Bruce stopped touring for nearly a decade. He spent mornings making pancakes, afternoons in the backyard, and nights teaching Evan simple chords on an old acoustic. In interviews, Bruce said, "That was my redemption. Those little lessons meant more than any encore I've ever played." Evan grew up to study at Boston College, focusing on music and communications. While he had his father's ear, he didn't inherit the hunger for spotlight. Instead, he leaned into curation and storytelling, producing, writing, and sharing music behind the scenes. For a time, he played local gigs, testing his sound. The audience didn't always know who he was, and that was the point. He wanted his art to stand on its own legs, not his father's name. By the 2010s, Evan began working for E Street Radio on Sirius XM, curating shows that celebrated his father's legacy, but also introduced new artists. Bruce later said, "He knows more about music than I ever did at his age. He teaches me what's next." Today, Evan still lives quietly in New Jersey. He attends family events, supports his siblings' endeavors, and occasionally joins Bruce on tour, backstage, never as a star, always as a son. He may not sing on stage, but through him, Bruce learned what it truly means to listen. Jessica Ray Springsteen, the Rebel and the Rider. Born December 30th, 1991. Jessica was born into rhythm, but not the musical kind. Her heart beat in sync with galloping hooves rather than drum kits. At 5 years old, she climbed onto her first horse, and there it was, her calling. While her classmates obsessed over pop idols, Jessica obsessed over perfecting her posture in the saddle. Bruce and Patty recognized that spark. Instead of pushing her toward fame, they built a training stable on their Colts Neck property. Bruce would often joke, "I play guitars, she rides horsepower." Her determination was unmatched. She trained 6 hours a day, balancing elite competition with college at Duke University. While her peers chased Instagram fame, Jessica pursued something timeless: mastery. By her early 20s, she was competing at world-class levels. In 2014, she narrowly missed qualifying for the Rio Olympics, a heartbreak that tested her spirit. But she came back stronger, fueled by grit and grace. Her crowning moment arrived at the Tokyo 2021 Olympics, when she clinched a silver medal for Team USA in equestrian jumping. Bruce watched the event from home, tears in his eyes. Later that night, he told fans, "It's different when it's your kid. You don't want them to be the best. You just want them to be happy." Now one of the top-ranked show jumpers in the world, Jessica represents Gucci Equestrian, traveling across Europe for Grand Prix events. Her Instagram reflects a life of discipline and love. No glitz, no celebrity chase, just her and her horses. Once a little girl riding ponies in her backyard, she's now a decorated Olympian, admired for her humility. But what stands out most isn't her medals, it's her quiet independence. In every leap she takes, Jessica carries her father's courage, the kind that chases freedom, not fame. Sam Springsteen, the quiet protector. Born January 5, 1994. If Jessica ran toward competition, Sam ran toward service. The youngest of the Springsteen children grew up surrounded by music and success, yet gravitated toward something much simpler, helping others. From an early age, he admired firefighters. He'd visit local stations with his dad, fascinated by their brotherhood, their sense of duty. Bruce later recalled, "He looked at those guys the way I looked at rock bands." After graduating from Monmouth County Fire Academy, Sam joined as a volunteer firefighter before becoming a full-time Jersey City firefighter in 2020. His graduation ceremony was emotional. Bruce, in tears, told reporters, "It's been a long road. We're proud of him." Unlike his siblings, Sam avoids the spotlight entirely. He keeps no public social media, gives no interviews, and quietly does his work, saving lives, responding to calls, and serving his community. Bruce, who once sang about blue-collar heroes, now had one sitting at his kitchen table. He admitted, "Sam's job is the hardest thing in the world, walking into danger for others. It makes all the songs I wrote about bravery seem small." The young boy who once watched fire trucks in awe now drives them, embodying the same grit his father sang about. In a world obsessed with fame, Sam chose humility, the truest legacy of all. He may not wear a spotlight, but in Bruce's heart, Sam burns brighter than any stage light ever could. The house that music built. The Springsteens' home isn't a mansion, it's a sanctuary. Bruce's guitars hang next to family photos. Patty's laughter fills the rooms. It's the kind of place where the famous forget they're famous. Bruce often says, "We raised our kids in a way that let them be normal. I just happened to have an unusual job." Every Sunday, the family gathers for dinner. No cell phones, no business talk, just conversation, teasing, and music drifting softly in the background. Sometimes Bruce picks up a guitar. Other times, Evan plays DJ. Jessica shares competition stories, and Sam listens, smiling quietly. It's a family grounded by intention. They travel together, celebrate together, and protect each other fiercely. The children grew up Catholic, went to public schools, and learned that kindness mattered more than celebrity. Now adults, they remain rooted in New Jersey, not for nostalgia, but for belonging. Because in a world that worships fame, the Springsteens found strength in ordinariness. The man who once ran from home built one so full of love, no one wanted to leave. The darkness he fought, and the light they gave back. Bruce has always been open about his battles with depression. At times he described it as a storm that never fully clears, but in his children he found anchors. During his darkest years, Evan would visit him in the studio, reminding him that music still had meaning. Jessica would call from a horse show, grounding him in the present. Sam's daily bravery reminded him that courage isn't about applause, it's about showing up. In Born to Run, his memoir, Bruce wrote, "My kids didn't heal me, but they gave me something to live for. And that's the beginning of every kind of healing." During the pandemic, the family played music together at home, simple, unplugged, unrehearsed. Patty on harmonies, Bruce on acoustic, and the kids singing softly along. It wasn't for fans, it was for them. The man who once wrote songs about escaping towns now writes about finding peace within four walls. He spent a lifetime chasing the American dream, only to find it sitting across the dinner table. The family that stayed grounded. Many celebrity families fracture under fame. The Springsteens thrived because they never played that game. Bruce credits Patty's wisdom for that. "She's the one who taught me how to come home," he said. Patty stepped away from performing for years to raise their kids, ensuring they grew up surrounded by love, not headlines. And when she rejoined Bruce on tour, their chemistry was a living testament to partnership, one built on patience and laughter. Their three children remain close, often traveling home for holidays or Bruce's concerts. When Bruce received the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2016, they stood behind him, proud, grounded, silent pillars of his legacy. Their presence was unspoken proof. Behind every rock legend, there's a family that holds the rhythm steady. The boss may lead the band, but at home, love sets the tempo. The legacy beyond the legend. Today, Bruce Springsteen is entering his twilight years not as an icon chasing relevance, but as a man savoring reflection. He still tours, yes, but every lyric feels more like a prayer than a performance. When asked what makes him proudest, Bruce doesn't mention records or Grammys. He smiles and says softly, "That my kids grew up kind. That's the whole dream right there." His children's stories, Evan's quiet creativity, Jessica's grace, Sam's service, are the true verses of his life's greatest song. Not about fame, but about fulfillment. He once sang, "Baby, we were born to run." But in the end, Bruce Springsteen found the real meaning of freedom, staying still long enough to love. The music of fatherhood. In the end, Bruce's greatest masterpiece isn't on vinyl, it's in the lives of his children. Three souls who reflect the best parts of him. Evan, who listens, Jessica, who leaps, Sam, who serves. They are the quiet continuation of the stories Bruce once sang about, the dreamers, the believers, the ordinary heroes. Their lives remind us that legacy isn't about the noise you make in the world. It's about the peace you leave behind in your family. This was the untold story of Bruce Springsteen's three children. Behind every legend, another story waits in the shadows. Which of Bruce Springsteen's children's journeys surprised you the most? Evan the dreamer, Jessica the writer, or Sam the protector? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold family stories. Whose family story should we explore next?